Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome. My guest today on Your Partner in Success Radio, Carly Fouth, is a fitness instructor, movement mentor, and founder of Fit Fun Carly, which is a virtual fitness program that helps people get fit in just 15 minutes a day. I need that. A lifelong advocate for mental health through fitness. Carly's passion for wellness deepened, and listen to this story. God, I want you guys to take notes. Deepened when she was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer in February 2024. It wasn't that long ago, not even a year ago. And as a survivor, she now uses her journey to inspire others to unlock their extraordinary personal strength and overcome life's obstacles. When I tell you her story is extraordinary, I'm not joking. So, inspired by a friend's podcast and her own desire to manage anxiety, Carly launched Chemo Coffee Talk directly from her infusion chair at Dana-Farber. And in October 2024, again, not that long ago, she published her book, Pray for the Bear, An Ordinary Person's Guide to Unlocking Extraordinary Personal Strength. And the title, and I asked her this during a pray interview, the title was inspired by Kobe Bryant's quote, "If you see me in a fight with a bear, pray for the bear." Carly, good morning. Thank you for sending me your book, Pray for the Bear. It's in front of me as we speak. But before we get started, can you share a bit about yourself with with our audience and how you like to show up in the world? I think I already know the answer to that, but just share it for the audience if you would.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Denise. I'm really excited to talk to you. I feel like my job and my role now is to show up in the world and inspire people, and teach them how they can use the things that they've gone through, the struggles in their lives, to really help them get through whatever bear is in their path. I don't think there's anything that makes me extraordinary. I think I am just an ordinary person who made the choice to make some lemonade out of the rotten lemons I was served. And I think that that's within all our powers to do, because nobody escapes. Life is hard, but if you look hard enough, and I think it's the hard part, is when you're in a tough situation, I think you're always presented with some way to make meaning of it, whether you choose to do it or not. I'm not saying that choice is easy. Sometimes it's really easy to fall down that rabbit hole and fall into a depression or be anxious or just be really upset. But if you choose to see the thing that's before you to make sense out of the difficult time you're going through, it really gives you your power back, and you can kind of create the own narrative of whatever it is you're going through and take control of it.
And I know you use gratitude a lot. And I have to tell you a quick story. This is many years ago. This podcast just turned 17, old enough to drive, or it's getting a debutante ball. I haven't decided. But years ago, and I've never forgotten this man, he wanted to come on the show. I have PR people that always reach out and say, can you interview, this person or that? And most of the time I say yes. Sometimes if it's about the UN, no, don't even ask me again. But this man, his story was like yours, and it was so fascinating. He had terrible cancer. I mean, just terrible, probably some of the worst type of cancer you can find. And he was basically, as I recall the story, told to go home and get his affairs in order. Nobody wants to hear that. I heard it years ago when I went in for an unscheduled surgery, and I was told, get your affairs in order. I went, okay. I didn't,
Yeah.
but still. But, he started talking, and I got out of his way, and he talked about gratitude. Now, I have to tell you, he was told he had, 4 to 6 months to live. He came on my show about 5 years after that diagnosis, and he was convinced, and I believe remains convinced, that he did it with massive, and he kept repeating that, massive gratitude. Now he did do some of the surgeries. I think he turned away some of the different things that they wanted him to do, but he used his own voice and then he just practiced massive gratitude. He was fine.
Mhm.
He cured himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he had help, obviously, but I've never forgotten that story. And when I was talking with you on the pre-interview, I kept thinking of him because, I've heard this story before.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge compliment that you would think of me in relation to him because he sounds like a really awesome guy. But I truly believe that gratitude is a powerful thing. I think and that's something that anyone can access. But again, I'm not saying it's easy and it is a practice. It's something that you have to maybe start small and just notice the things that are going right for you, maybe just one thing and focus on that. And then, just like anything else, once you get your brain and mind used to going in that direction, then other things start to appear before you that you're like, oh, I never noticed that before. I'm really grateful that I have that. And I think the power of positive thinking is huge. I do believe in toxic positivity, and I don't like that. I think there's a fine line between being positive and being grateful, and then being toxic about it, because I think it's okay to admit that things are bad. But I also believe that you can admit things are bad, give yourself a little time to acclimate yourself with whatever is bad. But then you really have to make the choice to pull up your big girl pants and keep going, because there is so much light out there. No matter how dark it gets, there is still a lot of light, but you just have to keep your eye on it.
And I have and I hate to admit this, although I do recall admitting it during the show, and this was maybe 10, 12 years ago, a long time ago. And I remember after I got off the show and thought about, what he had shared with me, I went, Denise, you're not a very grateful person. And I wasn't. I was busy. I was driven. I'm an A-type personality. I can be incredibly obnoxious on some days. Even I can't stand me. And it was like, what the heck is wrong with you? And all of a sudden, like you just said, everywhere I looked, there was something to smile at, to be grateful for, to pay attention to. And I changed. I really did.
Hmm. Yeah, it's something that can again, it is very powerful, and sometimes it just takes meeting someone like that man you mentioned to kind of remind you of that. I also think one of the best things you can do to practice gratefulness is to focus on doing one thing kind for someone else every day. Whenever I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or when I'm feeling a lack of gratitude, I kind of like take a step aside and be like, okay, so I got to get out of my own headspace. I got to get back into that kind of grateful mindset. Um, how can I be of service to somebody else? What is one thing I can do to be kind to someone else when nothing is expected? Just a random act of kindness. And it's amazing how that can provide a kind of clearing of all the negativity, and then it's easier to get back into that kind of thinking again.
Leads me to your podcast
Yeah.
because you just kind of described what you're doing there. Tell me about that. Tell me how you started it. You said it was at the in the infusion chair at where you were getting treatment, and
Dana-Farber,
that
yeah.
Dana-Farber, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Well,
So,
I
so tell me about that. Tell me about the people who helped you with that.
Yeah, so there really wasn't anybody that helped me. I think that's kind of how I get myself through tough situations. If I'm scared of something, I have to always dig deep in my mind and think like, how can I make this more comfortable myself? Have I been here before? Is there something that I um, is there some kind of way I can kind of think about some other experience I've been through that this kind of makes sense? Or I just reframe it. So when I found out that I had to do really like the worst chemo, the most aggressive chemo, I was scared. I had no idea what chemo was like. The only person that I mean, I knew of people who had gone through chemo, but I didn't really have any intimate conversations with them. And I just thought of my grandmother. That was the closest experience I had to anybody going through chemo, and she was violently ill. And it was, you hear all these awful stories. So I thought to myself, I have to figure out a way that I can get through those doors and be brave. And again, I wanted to be like, I kind of wanted to go in there with the same way I approach other aspects of my life and be positive and be optimistic and be a breath of fresh air. So I thought, okay. I was on somebody else's podcast and she was just doing it from her cell phone with two little microphones. So when I was doing the podcast, I thought to myself, "Oh, I've always wanted to do a podcast. What a great idea. I'll just take my phone and I'll buy these two little microphones and then I'll do a podcast for my chemo chair to kind of let people in on the chemo experience because I knew that there are probably a lot of other people who are just as scared. And then I also thought I had all these great people who volunteered to be my chemo buddies. So those people were the people that said, "Hey, Carly, I'll go to chemo with you and sit there." And it was all, I looked at the list of the people who had reached out to me, and some were like my best friends, but some were just really good friends who may not have been the first person I would have thought would join me at chemo. And every single one of them I realized had taught me something and were so important to me that that gave me the strength to be able to go through this experience. So I thought, what a great way for me to interview them on the podcast so they can share their story of hope and resilience, and I can let them know what they taught me. They can teach it to everybody else, and then I can give a little update on what it's like to go through chemo. And I went in there and I didn't ask permission because I thought, I didn't have a video. I knew I wasn't breaking any laws or violating anything. So I thought, okay, if they don't like that I'm doing it, they can tell me to stop, but let me show them how great it is before they tell me to stop. So luckily they thought I was nuts, but I think they kind of were like, let's give her a shot at this and see what's going on with it. And it ended up being one of the best things I ever did. And they actually loved it. So it really worked out, and I'm still doing it from my kitchen. And it's one of my favorite things that I do.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you tell me that some of the medical staff also got involved in the interviews?
Yeah. Yeah. My chemo nurse, her name is Lauren. We became very close. She was a guest. Actually, she was a guest as she was giving me the chemo. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the PR person from Dana-Farber, the head of PR, called me. At first, when she called me, I thought, oh no, she's going to tell me that I have to shut it down. But it was the exact opposite. She wanted to help me get the word out. So WCVB in Boston, it's an ABC affiliate, came to do a story on the podcast as well. So everyone kind of rallied behind it, and I'm really grateful for that because it allowed me to reach more people than I probably ever thought that I would reach with the podcast.
I have to tell you what I love about your story, because if you hear me at all, you will always hear me say, get your voice heard.
Mm-hmm.
And you did. So good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I felt like this was a good way for me to again reframe it and take a situation that was handed to me and try to pull something positive out of it and try to help other people.
So tell me about the book. I mean, when I said at the top of the show, all of this kind of happened very quickly, just in the last 12 months or even less.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a podcast and a book and you're home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the book. Where did you find the time to
So
write and publish a book? I'm fascinated.
yeah, so I had a lot of time during chemo just because I really couldn't do a lot. Like I would always make sure I moved at least 15 minutes a day, and I did continue to teach and never missed a day of working out through my chemo treatments. But that really tired me out. So for a majority of the day, on some of my bad days, I really just found it comforting to sit there and sit outside and listen to the birds. And I had all these thoughts come running through my head again about reframing the situation and what have I learned from my past, and thinking about all the important people that had taught me lessons. And I thought, I think I have a lot of information here. I need to get it out of my head. So I started writing. I knew that journaling was probably a good idea, but for some reason I couldn't connect to it being a journaling activity. But as soon as I thought, I think I have enough here to possibly write a book, I had always wanted to write a book. I would just sit at my computer and it would just be streams of thought. And I just start writing and getting all those thoughts out of my head. And then I had a friend who was an editor, and she offered to edit my thoughts as I was pouring them out onto my computer. So it kind of became this work in progress where I would write something, she would edit it, I would write again, she would edit it. And then I thought it could be great if I published the book. So I did my research. I did try to pitch a lot of the big publishing houses, but the type of book that it is it's short stories and vignettes. And it's hard to find a publisher that will publish that kind of book unless you're a well-known author. But then I did find someone to help me publish it, and he was amazing, and he understood my mission, and he actually pitched me to be able to handle my book. So that was pretty amazing. So then when it came, I met him, and he helped me through the whole publishing process. I still can't believe it all came together as fast as it did, but it just felt, it's like one of those things, if you just keep working hard and you have an idea of what you really want to do, and you put the work in, I think the universe has your back, and it developed into this wonderful thing. It's one of the best things I think I've done, because it allows me to help even more people. And the feedback that I've gotten from the book has been so nice. I'm so happy other cancer patients are reading it and taking comfort in it.
I reviewed your book. You sent it to me a couple of weeks ago, I think, and I reviewed it. And then I see on LinkedIn, it was either LinkedIn or Instagram. I can't remember now.
I think it was Instagram
Was it
or
Instagram?
Facebook. Yeah, I
I
forget.
see
Somewhere I
this,
posted it.
my first review, and I see my name. I went, what? I'm your first review. How the heck did that happen? Everybody should be looking at this book.
Oh, you're so sweet. Your words were so nice. And when I saw that come through, I was like, wow, I've been reviewed by somebody more than just my friends and family and people that bought the book on Amazon. It felt really, it was like a major stepping stone. So thank
Well,
you.
I thought it was so cute. I was like, oh, I'm famous. Somebody put
Yes.
my name on Instagram. But I wanted to ask you, you mentioned fitness, and I know that that's what you do for a living. So very quickly, as a fitness instructor, how did movement and exercise factor into your battle against this breast cancer? How did you manage it? Because you've said you were exhausted, you were worn out. And I don't know anything about chemotherapy other than what I know from my friends and people who've
Mhm.
gone through it. And it can be debilitating. So how did you manage that?
Yeah, I was really nervous when I was first diagnosed because, like you, all I heard was the stories. And I thought to myself, oh, I can't imagine a worse career to be in when you get a cancer diagnosis than a fitness instructor. I just launched Fit Fun Carly less than a year before officially, and I don't have a staff. It's just me. And I had to keep working because I have a family to support. So I thought there has to be a way for me to continue. I have to figure this out. And I was talking to my oncologist about it, and then she told me, Carly, I heard this I heard a speaker a couple of weeks ago, and it made me think of you. And she wrote a book. It's called Moving Through Cancer, Dr. Catherine Schmitz. So she said you should get that. I think you would. I think it's perfect for you. And she kind of spells it out what you can expect to get from chemo and how you can move your body to stay strong. So I got that book, and when I first read the first page, I was hooked. And it gave me so much hope because I realized that, yes, I think I can move through cancer and chemo as long as I'm realistic and I listen to my body. And I followed the book, and I was able to never take a day off from teaching. I do, like you said in the beginning, my specialty is moving at least 15 minutes a day. So a lot of my classes are short format. So I made a commitment to my clients. I said, I'm going to show up for you. You show up for me, and let's just get through this. So I found, especially once I started through the more rigorous parts of the treatment, that, like it says in the book, that you may not feel like moving, but if you can just get the energy to at least get your walk into the mailbox, it helps with the side effects of chemo. And all it took was one time, my worst day, when I was so nauseous, and I was thinking, like, I can't even imagine having to teach a class. And I said, you know what, just try, just 5 minutes. If you can't do it, you can just tell your clients you can't do it. They'll understand. What happened in that 5 minutes is that the nausea started to subside. And I was like, oh, there is something to this. So I used movement as medication to fight the side effects of chemo. And it's a really powerful thing. I think there's a lot of studies coming out that show that the importance of moving through treatment, not just moving to prevent cancer or moving after cancer to get stronger again, to save your muscle mass, to keep to a little bit of cardio. it can really help you during treatment. So I kind of used myself as um, like a test case, and it was really interesting to see how my method of 15 minutes a day played in perfectly with my diagnosis. So again, it's funny how the universe has your back, but it really helped me, and I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to stick with it.
What you said about just walking down to the mailbox. I caught my first cold in December. For
Ugh.
in 14 years, I have not been sick. I haven't had cold. I hadn't had flu. COVID never got anywhere near me. It knew better. And I'm an introvert, so cooties don't come walking in my door as a
Yeah.
rule. But but I had the cold from hell, which actually turned into pneumonia, which I didn't
Ugh.
recognize quite right away. Carly, I felt so bad for myself.
Ugh.
I whined, I cried, I laid on the couch, I read books, I whined some more. I was pathetic, and I knew I was pathetic. And I stood up, and my legs were just rubbery. I said, "How in the hell? Why are you doing this? Get off of this couch." Grabbed the poor dog. She's like, "Oh, we're going outside." Really, really? I grabbed her. Amazon had left a package that belonged 5 or 6 houses down the road, and I just hadn't had the energy to go deliver it. And I grabbed her. It was dark night. It was about 10 o'clock at night. Poor woman couldn't figure out why I was knocking on her door and waving this package at her camera. But, and I could tell she was sick. She didn't want to come to the door. She said, "Can you leave it on the steps?" Yes, I can. But then after that, Hannah and I did our half-hour walk, and each step I felt stronger.
Yeah.
And I quit whining. I was so proud of myself. I mean, I didn't have cancer. I had a cold. Well, I had pneumonia. But, it doesn't matter where you are physically. I guess that's my point. I'm not comparing what you're going through to what I went through, but some of it was the same. I got weak. When I quit moving, I got weak.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to recognize too, and I'm glad that you brought this up, saying like when you say like your pneumonia was not as bad as cancer. I think that the feelings and the feeling of not feeling well and the feelings in your body, it really doesn't matter what it is that's making you feel less than. If you remove the cause, the feelings are the same. So you did experience the same thing as a chemo patient would feel when they're not feeling well. But again, it's counterintuitive, but the more you move, the more energy you'll have, and the less you move, the less energy you'll have. So the type of thing is like in the book Moving Through Cancer, it said you're going to feel horrific fatigue, but one of the ways to feel more energy is to get up and move your body. It doesn't sound like it makes sense, but it does, because the more you move, the more you're going to want to do it, and it keeps that energy level up. And I think that's true of cancer. I think that's true of um, depression, anxiety, a cold, pneumonia. Like, obviously listening to your body and being smart about it, but not letting yourself wallow on the couch unless you really have to. And there are days when you really have to. And I would never shame anybody for doing that, because sometimes you can't get out of bed. But when there is a teeny, teeny little bit of inkling of light and you're like, maybe I can, that's a time to get up and give it a shot.
Every time I talk with you, I think, and I don't know if this is a commercial I heard. I don't watch TV, so maybe I don't know where it came from, and it's always stuck in my head. A body in motion stays in motion.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
put your butt on the couch for 4 days and try to get back up.
It's hard.
Oh, I mean, I kept thinking, how are my legs this week? This is ridiculous. But
Yeah.
then I got mad. Then I went for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. And that helps. I
Hmm.
mean, once you get that
Yeah, have a
movement back
temper
in.
tantrum.
Yeah.
Have a
Let
temper
yourself fall
tantrum and
down.
go.
And I always say,
Yeah.
like, if I'm feeling that way, and I literally have done this before, I'll set a timer and I'll say, you know what? I'm going to have this massive pity party and wallow. But when the timer goes off, I'm done. And that's the end of it. And then
I
I
don't
have to
have a
put myself up.
timer, but I do. I think, okay, I'm going to just have a fit. I'm
Yep.
going to wallow for a little while. And then after I'm listening to myself, because I talk out loud, I don't know about you, but I talk to myself a lot. And then I'll realize just how ridiculous I sound. So I start laughing.
Yeah.
You can talk yourself out of a pity party by just watching and observing and going, "Oh, well, you're an idiot."
Yeah.
You get moving.
Yep. Keeping your sense of humor is huge too. And just being realistic. And I think that's the fact that you can do that is a skill too. And a lot of people have to practice that as well. It's all a practice. Life is a practice.
That word, because we were talking about practicing gratitude and so many other things. Tell me about the book. I love this book. I've got I don't know if you know this, a lot of people who listen to me know that I will not mark a book. I spent my childhood in libraries in the summertime,
Yeah.
and she would, I always think of my librarian as a nun.
Yeah.
She'd be behind us with this imaginary ruler, and we could not turn down pages or mark in the books. We'd be banned from the library, and that would kill me. But I've got sticky notes all over this, and it's not a listen, y'all. This is the kind of book you can put it in your purse. You can carry it on a plane. It's not big. It's not bulky. It's holdable. So you can take it wherever you want to go with it. But when I tell you I got sticky notes and they're different colors, pink, green, and blue.
Oh,
They
I
mean
love
different
that.
things. But tell me about the book. What are you hearing from people that are the most important things that they're taking away from this book?
Yeah, I get a lot of messages, sometimes from people I don't know, and then from people I know too, quoting the book, which is just, I don't know, it's surreal to me. It's like you reviewing it. I'm like, I can't believe people are actually like paying attention to what I have to say, and it seems to be resonating. Um, I think I get really happy when people tell me that they have bought the book as a gift for someone going through a hard time. I really appreciate the fact when people write to me and say, I'm not going through cancer, I'm going through something else difficult, and your thoughts and your viewpoints have helped me get through it. Because I wrote the book, I mean, cancer was my bear, or is my bear, was my bear, but everybody has different bears pop up on their journey in life. And I wanted it to be a kind of book that could apply to anybody's bear and just help people, kind of like a workbook that didn't involve you picking up a pen and paper, kind of a mental workbook. And a lot of people have said that it really made them think. And I think that's the best compliment. And then I think it's really interesting as well, because I do talk about experiences with different people. And I've had a lot of people want to talk to me because they're afraid that I was talking about them. But yeah, it's been it. I just love when I hear from people and they tell me specifically an experience in their life where my point of view has helped them. I think that's the biggest compliment.
I think I lost you there for a
Oh
little
no, I'm
bit.
here. Yep, I'm
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Well, did you hear me ask about
I didn't.
Belinda?
It was muted.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut that part out. We had this problem with Zoom just recently where, things just disappeared. But if we
Yeah.
can't cut it out anyway, y'all, we're still here. Okay, so I was telling you that one of my favorite parts of your book is chapter 10, Find Your Belinda. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that because I read that twice. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. I think if the people that know my brother and his sense of humor would totally understand it. It kind of goes with his how he handles things with me. But when I first found the lump, I have a very close relationship with my brother. And I told my brother about the lump, and then he immediately started this whole storyline about that my tumor's name was Belinda because I had a third nipple all growing up, which since then I've gotten removed because of the whole breast cancer scare. But this has always been like a joke in my family, and he created this whole storyline that this tumor was Belinda, my Siamese twin, trying to like get out of my body and wreaking havoc in my body. So the storyline was this long storyline, but the gist of it was that we humanized my tumor by naming her Belinda. And then the storyline started to develop even more, where Belinda is this like trashy character from Lowell, Massachusetts. No offense to Lowell. This is just how this whole thing spiraled. She had a voice. And then it became a rallying cry for everyone. in support of me about, we called her, well, I don't know, I don't want to say a bad word on your podcast, but it was the BITCH Belinda. And the hashtag was DBB. So it was DAT BITCH Belinda. And so all my Instagram posts, we had t-shirts with that hashtag, and it just became this way to kind of, again, reframing a really scary situation, but bringing humor to it. Because on my roughest days, my brother was always one of the people. He called me every day, and he would always make me laugh. And usually it was talking about my tumor and humanizing it into this whole scenario. And this went on until I had my surgery, my double mastectomy to evict Belinda. That's what we said. We were evicting her.
Right.
And it just turned into this whole sketch, which I'll never forget. It made things less scary, which I think is really important.
Squatter. And right now we're talking about squatters all over the country. So
That's
it's
exactly what it's like. She
it's
was a
time to
squatter.
get out.
Get
Get
her
out.
out. Yeah,
That's
get her
right.
out.
I'm
Yeah.
bringing whatever I have to bring. I'm bringing a fire hose. I'm bringing shovels.
Oh,
You're out. Get
you
out
are
of here.
out. And I like to say that I took down her condo complexes when I had my double mastectomy so she could never come back.
I love that you have a sense of humor. My brother passed away about 3 years ago. It was double lung transplant.
Oh,
And he had an extra 8 years. When he went into the hospital, he did not plan on coming out. He was done. But they found lungs for him, and he did very, very well for about 8 years until he didn't. But his sense of humor never wavered.
yeah.
Never. So, and I
It's so
think
important.
it is. You have to have, and on his worst day, honestly, and he had some bad days. He called me. He was in San Francisco, San Francisco hospital. And he said, I'm out of here. I said, no, you can't leave. He said, I'm putting together sheets. I'm scaling out a window, but the damn windows won't open. I said, I was laughing so hard I had to hang up on him and call him later. It
Yeah.
was just,
Well, I think that really can, again, it's about reframing. You have the choice to find, there's humor in everything. You have the choice to find it. Sometimes it's sick humor, but if I just think, I don't know how you get through anything without laughing. I love to laugh.
I wanted you, listen, you talk a lot about the importance of community, and you've had, just from the sounds of it, a tremendous support network. What suggestions do you have for others like you or like anybody with any kind of illness, really? What can you do to, kind of help them build their own support systems, or, and this is a different question altogether, be part of a support system for others who need you?
Yeah, I think part of that, I think what I want people to take away from the book, maybe it's people who haven't hit a bear yet or haven't had a diagnosis, and everybody listening to this now, is pay attention to who's in your circle now. Start to really think about who are the people that you think would be there with their hand on your back when you're going to need it the most. And if there's anyone in your circle that isn't bringing out the best in you or is kind of like bringing you down, um, I don't think it's a bad thing to let them go. I mean, you could do it nicely. It doesn't have to be this big, dramatic event, but start surrounding yourself with people who make you feel better and help you feel good about yourself, and good people, so that when the time comes where you are going to face something scary, you'll have your support system around you. And the other thing is, make sure you are supporting other people in their journeys. Because I do believe in karma. I think you get what you give. So the more goodness that you could be putting out in the world, the more it's going to come back to you. And somebody told me when I was first diagnosed, she said, Carly, like one of the silver linings of this whole experience is you will see human kindness on a level that you would never be able to see it if you didn't go through something like this. And she was 100% correct. The amount of support that I had and the people that crawled out of the woodwork, along with the people that I thought would, and like my best friends and family members, it was so humbling. And I could not have gotten through this without them. So even if you're somebody who is an introvert and doesn't like to be around a lot of people, it's still important to have some kind of network that you have like a network around you, a group of friends, family members that you can lean on in the tough times, and then you can be there for them as well. It's imperative. You need people to help you.
And listen, I admit to being a highly committed introvert, but I'm not shy and I don't have
Right.
any filters.
Yeah.
And I can be around people for 59 and 3/4 minutes. So we've got that going. You know, I've timed it. But but I wanted to go to chapter 15, Sunday Spotlights on My Chemo Buddies. You've got some terrific stories in here.
Thank you. Yeah, I started the Sunday Spotlights. It was a little bit before COVID. And I remember, I think it was because I was on Instagram and I saw like somebody who has a ton of followers and really wasn't putting anything good into the world. And I was thinking to myself, I know so many people now and in my past who are so inspirational and are doing amazing things, but don't have the platform to be recognized. Um, and what everyone loves to get a pat on the back for a job well done. And I was like, especially these people that are in my life, because they're not even looking for the pat on the back, but it feels so good to be acknowledged for the good or the good parts of your personality, or be told what someone else learned from you. I think that's like such a great gift you can give someone. So I thought, why don't I start writing little like love notes to the people in my life on social media, to let other people know what I learned from them, and hopefully they can learn from them as well. So it started with one person, and then I mean, I don't do them as frequently now, because I was so busy writing the book, but I still do them. So I mean, they've been going on for years, where every week I just pick someone, and sometimes it's somebody I don't even know. So sometimes a stranger makes such a huge impact on me that I would write about them. So people just really resonated with them. I think it was kind of a way to help, like when you're scrolling through social media and you're like, ugh, I hate social media, that it's not doesn't all have to be bad. It can, you can find some bright spots in there too. So again, that was me putting just, I thought it was a nice way for me to thank the people who had had such an impact on my life. And again, were some of the huge reasons why I was able to get through something like a cancer diagnosis, is because the things that I've learned from the people around me.
These stories are, I actually resonate very strongly with one of them. I think you can guess who she is, but it's, I read stories of people who are just alone. They
Yeah.
are alone. Maybe they're in a nursing home, they're elderly. COVID was just
Oh,
nightmarish for a lot of people. And I think, honest to God, this is my personal thought. I think heads should roll for that.
yeah.
But I read these stories, or I'll see something maybe on Instagram or YouTube, where I saw one the other day with this very elderly, very frail woman. You could tell she's not long for this world. And her house, the yard was just an absolute overgrown mess. You could see the roof, you could see the top of a window, but it was horrible. And her neighbors weren't helping her. And this guy runs around and he cleans up yards. And I mean, he cleans them up. He cuts down overgrowth. He cleans the cracks. He does everything and he won't take a penny. He does it because it needs to be done. And Carly, I'm not much for watching anything. You give me a book, I'm all happy. You
Yeah.
give me something audible, I'm all happy. Don't make me watch anything. I get bored very easily. I don't watch TV, mostly
Yeah.
because it's garbage,
Yeah.
but mostly I just don't have the patience for it. But I watched this entire thing and I realized about midway through it, I my collar was getting wet. I was weeping. I
Yeah.
didn't even know it. People who they make a lot of difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to see. I think we need to be looking more at those stories and paying attention to those people, especially with how tough life is. And it just seems like it gets harder and harder, and that there's a lot of icky stuff out there. But there are a lot of people doing some really good things. And again, I feel like going back to the gratitude thing, if you're practicing gratitude, I feel like those are the stories and those are the type of things you're going to be drawn to, and it kind of feeds off itself. So the more you pay attention to those things, the more grateful you are, and then the more of those stories you see, and you're just putting yourself in the place of, like, you're setting yourself up for just being in a really good space mentally to be able to handle anything that comes your way.
Your book emphasizes finding extraordinary strength in ordinary moments, and I think that's an important statement. Finding extraordinary strength in ordinary moments. Are there any particular moments where you can just off the top of your head share something that you probably wouldn't have thought of before
During my cancer journey, or is it, did you
during
want?
during the journey? And
Yeah,
even now, because now you're starting to hear from people who are going, oh my God, you're speaking to me.
yeah. It's funny. I think the cancer journey is different than I thought it would be, because I thought, and this happened, and I did mention this in my book, that I really thought the end of chemo, like my last chemo session, my last chemo infusion, I thought that was going to be like a celebration. I thought we were going to be like, there was going to be balloons and streamers, and I was going to come home and I was going to feel like I was on top of the world because this was all behind me. And it was actually the exact opposite. That was my most depressing chemo transfusion of the whole thing. It was worse than the first one. And I think it's because you realize that it's not over, and there's always your whole life, you're a different person. Like, it changes your perspective, it changes your relationships, mostly for the good. It just changes your whole mental makeup and sometimes your physical makeup as well. And I don't think I was expecting that. So I feel like I've had to dig deep to find that strength every day since then, and I really wasn't expecting that to be the case. It's just getting used to your new normal, which can be difficult because it makes you appreciate life more, but you constantly feel like you have this a little bit of a weight on your shoulders, and you're constantly trying to use all the tools in your toolbox to like lift some of the weight off your shoulders. So it can get tiring. But yeah, that's really where I've had to like dig deep to find that strength again, because I realize like the bear is not directly in front of me, but I kind of feel like it's over in the bushes and I can hear it sometimes, which is a little scary, and that it's the constant fear of the bear jumping out again.
That's quite normal with diagnoses like yours because don't you have to have continued testing and there's a lot going on and I don't know if you're going for reconstruction surgery. You're not done. And I get that.
No, yeah, no, I'm not doing reconstruction surgery just because I don't, I mean, maybe if I was younger, I would, but right, I'm like, no, I just want to be done with it. I don't want any more surgeries. In my line of work, I really can't afford to be off my feet. So that was a personal decision that I'm fine with. And then I go every 3 months for a checkup. We don't do scans for me because I did have the double mastectomy. The cancer had not spread, so blood work and a checkup with my oncologist. So yeah, I think it's really interesting because for me, it was like, let's be aggressive. Let's get the double mastectomy. Let's do the most aggressive chemo. Like everything was like right there and a lot. And then all of a sudden it's nothing. And then it's like, we'll see you in 3 months. And you're like, but that's it. Yep, that's it. It's kind of like um I felt like the same way when I had a baby and I gave birth and I was in the hospital. And then they're like, okay, time for you to go home. And you're like, you're going to send me home and expect me to keep this other human alive? It's like the same kind of like, what? It's completely overwhelming.
I mean, what are you supposed to do with these? And your new normal. I hated that term during
Ugh.
COVID. I hate it to this day.
Yeah.
And pivot. Those are two terms I'm like, stop it.
Pivot.
Just don't pivot and don't new normal me. I will hit you. I hate them. I hate them both.
Yeah.
But to be honest, your new normal just kind of fell away. So now what?
Yeah. It's just eye-opening. But what I always remind myself and I always come back to is the fact that Nothing is guaranteed for anyone. Tomorrow is not guaranteed for any person in this world. The difference is I know what my bear is right now. I know what I'm up against. And yeah, there is that fear, but if you can also again reframe it, and then I say to myself, you know what? At least I know what my issue is, and at least I'm on the radar of doctors, and I'm past the point of having to fight for care. I'm in the system. They're watching me. I think honestly, with the way things are going in the world and how many people are being diagnosed with cancer, I think I probably would have the same anxiety if I didn't go through this diagnosis because I'd be so afraid that I was going to have to go through this. So I think you can't escape. It's just playing the cards you were dealt the best way you can and keeping things in perspective. And again, being grateful for the things in your life that you do have control over and that are going well.
This is kind of an oddball question, at least I think it is, and I wrote it. For those who are currently facing their own bears or their challenges, and right now we're looking at wildfires all over
Ah,
California that are
yes.
just, I'm not going to say what I think. I think a lot of people think what I think, and
Yeah.
it is what it is. But these are huge challenges, and just the sheer
Mm.
unknown. What initial steps would you recommend to help people, whether it's cancer, whether it's they just lost their home, whether their mom just died? We all have these things going on. What do you recommend to help people tap into their inner strength and their resilience after they get off the couch and walk the dog?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, the first thing I always think of because and I know you said you were similar is that like a control person, you type A personality, you need to control things. I think what happens in these big
I'm
situations.
obnoxious. Yeah.
No, not
Yeah.
that, no. But I think for people like you and me, and a lot of people out there too, when you're cancer, a fire, you didn't choose that. A lot of that is out of your control completely. And so what are you supposed to do with it? There's nothing worse than feeling like somebody has taken over control of your ship, of your life. I think you should be the captain of your own ship, but sometimes it feels like you have no control over where the ship is going. For me, I think it's finding something you can control. So for me, it was movement. I could choose to get up and I could choose to go for that walk. And maybe not to be a fitness fanatic, but maybe it's something like that, even when you're, I mean, I can't even imagine what it would feel like to watch your house burn to the ground. But find something that you have control over. Maybe it's your faith. Maybe it's the relationships with your kids or your friends or a pet. I don't, something that you still feel like you have control over and focus on that. And in those moments where you feel like you don't know what's going to happen next, that can kind of be like your anchor. I'm just talking from personal experience. And those are the things like when I talked about reframing and being scared to go into chemo because I didn't know what to expect. I still didn't know what to expect when I went into chemo, knowing I was going to do this podcast, but I chose to make it something that I chose to be the narrator of the situation. Like I was going to choose how the story was going to go. And that was my way of taking control of a situation. So, really, just sitting down and thinking about, even if it's something as small as taking 10 deep breaths, you have control over that. Find the controllable.
I tend to do that as well. Being an A
Yeah.
type, I am in control until I'm not.
Yeah.
And then I get all ticky about it, but then I get over it. So,
Yeah.
you do have to keep your sense of humor. You do have
Yes.
to keep your sense of curiosity and your sense of wonderment.
Yep.
And you can say to yourself, well, this sucks. I can't breathe. My legs just gave out on me because I haven't moved except for, when I had to, bathroom breaks and
Yeah.
feed the cats or they would have eaten me. But, it's just after a while, you're like, hang on a second. I'm not going to keep doing this. This is not working.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's again, it comes down to making the choice. And I'm not saying that's easy. It's sometimes it's so hard to make that choice to focus on the thing you can control or and to actually take action. Very hard. But once you do and you feel the mental benefits or the physical benefits or both, you'll want to keep doing it. And I feel like that can help you find the strength that you need to get through whatever it is you're going through.
You, Carly, is when you decide to take that step. You may feel terrible. You may feel like you can't
Yep.
even stand up without leaning against a wall. But once you start making that movement, it doesn't take long for you to feel better, does it?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It less time than you think, and it's more
Almost
powerful.
instantaneous,
Yes, it's
right?
almost instantaneous. And although it seems like you sometimes taking that step to move seems like climbing Mount Everest, but then once you do it and you start to notice the positive effects it has on you, you're going to want to do it more because you want to feel better.
Am now, and ooh, we're running out of time. Pick your tribe. This is
Yeah.
page 96, chapter 31. And you say at the very top of the page, one of the great things about being so open and public about my breast cancer diagnosis was that I was immediately, and I didn't cross this, underline it, but there is a sticky note next to it, connected to some of the most amazing cancer survivors. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, I think that can be a double-edged sword too. I think that everybody wants to connect you to somebody they know who is going through cancer, and it's all done with love, and I love that, but it can get a little bit overwhelming if you have so many people coming at you with different viewpoints and different experiences. It can even be a little scary because everybody's diagnosis is different, and just because something happened to one person doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. But I think if you can be open to that and realize that people are just trying to help you and have your own boundaries, you will be introduced to people who are meant to be in your life. And for me, I had two women who um, both had the same type of cancer as me. And they kind of just like wrote, I don't even know how to say this, not that they're better than everyone else, but it just was like, oh, okay, everyone is so lovely. But then these two people just like rose to the top. And it just happened that it was easy to talk to them. They could answer my questions. There was just this natural bond we had. So I was able to kind of just focus when I got scared. I could go to them as opposed to go to everyone else who I had been in contact with, which can be overwhelming when you get all different answers from people and viewpoints and opinions. And I trusted them that I know, like, if I said, I'm really scared about this, and they would write me back and say, like, give me ways to stop being scared. Or if I had a question about triple negative breast cancer, somebody told me something, is this true? They were so well read and well educated that they'd be able to, like, quickly, like, walk me off the ledge. And if I was feeling emotional or scared about something, they were there for me. So I think that's very important for you to find people to support you and to be supported by as many people as possible is lovely. But then from those people, find your little tribe that gets you, understands you, who you feel comfortable with going to with your concerns, um, and stick to those people as opposed to constantly putting everything out there of concerns with everybody, because I think then it can start to be too much. So find some people you trust who have gone through the same thing as you, and it can be so empowering and really help you on those dark days.
Listening to you, something keeps going through my mind. It's like you can listen to just so many stories before you say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm getting back on the couch. I'm covering the blanket
Yep.
over my head, and the cats are just going to have to do, they have to fend for themselves. I can't do
Yeah.
it anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get to that. You're right. Pick your tribe, pick the voices that really resonate with you, and they are helpful to you. You're not just
Yes.
listening to them or commiserating with them all the time, but you're not getting anything back that helps you.
Correct.
Call the herd,
Yes.
CULL, call the herd. You don't need to get ugly, but I do this all the time. If I come across people who are just toxic at some level, I don't stick around.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something you learn as you get older too. I feel like I've gotten a lot more courage and a lot more self-confidence to be like, that doesn't mean that the person is a bad person. They're just not the right person for me right now. So it feels good to me to kind of say goodbye to them. Maybe not forever, but for now, in a nice way. You don't have to be rude about it, but I'm just going to choose not to let that person in anymore. And I think the more you can do that, the more self-confidence you have around that, the better off you'll be.
Carly, what's next for you? What do you have going on?
Well, I'm very excited about helping cancer patients move through their treatments. So as fitness is my passion. I'm still working with clients who don't have cancer, but I really enjoy and will continue to enjoy helping people realize that movement is medicine. So whether it be against cancer or a mental struggle they have or coming back from an injury, that truly is my passion. Um, so that's what's next for me, continuing down the path I'm on. I look forward to continuing my podcast. I love finding guests for that. I love the interesting people that I'm getting to talk to. And yeah, I just want to help as many people as possible. Maybe I'll write another book. Maybe I'll write a Pray for the Bear part 2. I don't know. I'm still working on getting the first one out. But yeah, I think the next thing for me is just to continue to make lemonade out of the lemons. I refuse to let cancer define me. I get to define the cancer journey that I've just been on.
For you. And when you say lemonade, I don't like sweet things. I don't eat sugar, never have, don't like it, can't stand it actually. But I love honey. So when I make
Oh,
lemonade, I make it with lemons, obviously, or a really condensed lemon juice that I buy that's organic, honey, and believe it or not, red pepper. It's
oh, that
delicious.
sounds
It's
delicious.
wonderful. I'll send you the recipe.
Yes, please do.
It's just enough red pepper to give it a little
Little
bit of a
kick.
kick. Yeah,
Oh, I
it's not
love that.
sweet. I'll send it to you. Carly, do you have any final thoughts to share with the audience before I reluctantly let you go?
Uh,
And where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at FitFunCarly. My website is fitfuncarly.com. And then if anyone wants to email me, I love hearing from people. It's Carly at fitfuncarly.com. I just really want to let people know that whatever you're up against, there is always hope. Just do your best to try to see the silver lining and do your best to make meaning of whatever it is you are going through. And whatever bear you're up against, you can beat the bear.
I have to tell you that my bear is me. It's always me.
Yeah, my
I
bear
don't,
is me too.
yeah, isn't that? And people go, really? Yeah,
That
you're
makes sense.
honestly your own worst troublemaker. So get over
Yeah.
that. Let's let's stop doing that.
I love that. Yeah, I can relate.
Today I had the pleasure of speaking with Carly Falk, a fitness instructor, cancer survivor, and author of Pray for the Bear. Go get that book. Seriously, go get it. Doesn't matter what is troubling you, go get the book. She shared the inspiration behind her book's title, which is rooted in the idea of finding strength in life's challenges. And we discussed her background in fitness and how that played a vital role in her healing journey and how she launched her podcast, Chemo Coffee Talk, during chemotherapy to support others facing similar battles. And her message is powerful. Extraordinary strength can be found in ordinary moments. We all know this if we're paying attention. And her journey reminds us that even in our toughest times, we have the capacity to overcome and inspire those around us. So if you want to learn more about Carly's journey, connect with her, as she just said, on Instagram at FitFunCarly. Check out her podcast, Chemo Coffee Talk, on Spotify, and grab a copy of Pray for the Bear. You can put it in your purse. You can stick it in the pocket of your car. You can take it on the airplane. You can take it in the hospital with you. It's very handy. Have it and grab a copy of that book and then join her community and find your own extraordinary strength. And thank you for joining us on this enlightening conversation. We'll see you next week. Carly, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a truly fascinating conversation.
Denise, it's so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.